Sean, obviously you're an Armagh man, so obviously a disappointing result for Armagh in the end. What were your thoughts on the game?
I suppose very disappointing from an Armagh point of view. As you say, I'm an Armagh man, and I suppose we expected a lot better than that. I don't think we expected to win the game. I think we wanted to be in the game, and my own opinion was that they would test Donegal for maybe 60 minutes and Donegal would pull away at the end, and that's just not what happened, obviously.
A game of two halves, as you'd say. Some comeback from us. I was really worried kind of in the first half. Well, not too worried, but the fact that, Kildare were really, really good defensively, very hard to break down. They had a lot of men behind the ball. They seemed to have a system which was working for them, and it looked like it was paying off. But then I think Meath, came out in the second half. We got the early goal, and I don't know. I think Kildare just lost their shape, panicked a little bit, a few defensive mistakes, and we did capitalise on that. So it's a good win. I thought we'd only win by 5 points, but
Ben, in the end, a disappointing result. Obviously, for yourselves, obviously as a Wexford man yourself. I suppose, what are your thoughts on the game?
Very, very disappointed, really. More so with the performance. Really, I don't think the lads showed their best. We were 10 points down at half time, and we never really clawed into that. Like, I think we finished 7 points in the end, but we never looked like we were going to get it back. So that's the most disappointing thing, that we just didn't perform on the day.
Eamon, in the end, a very comprehensive win for Dublin in the end, 22-point victory. What were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, well, that's what we expected, really, in terms of the comfort of it. You're kind of looking more for, with these Dublin wins, for just a general, is there anything new in their style of play, and to see kind of, is there any new players emerging, or maybe any holes that get shown up by opposition. I think that the positives that they can take is there seems to be maybe a little bit better discipline from the Westmeath game, just players coming on, obviously more so than new players. There's Paul Manning coming on, Brian Howard played very well when he came on, so it's good to see obviously their key players seeing a bit more form, and so it's very hard to judge from it, but the only negatives, I think, maybe Laois up front. Their full forward line did cause Dublin some trouble, so other teams can maybe see how they did that and how they went about it, but they were nowhere near strong enough to mount a serious challenge. The only thing that kept them in it in the first half was the goalkeeper with some great saves.
Yeah, very delighted. Look, I thought we were going to win it, but to win it by the way we did and the score we did, and I'm just quite proud of how Donegal played today. And we blew them out the water. And in the last 10 years, we've been this is the 9th Ulster final in the last 10 years, and I don't think, 10 years down the line I'll ever experience anything like it. And it's just good to see it. And we've another Ulster final.
Well, obviously the loss of Lee Chin is massive. He's the talisman. He's the option for puckouts. He's the main scorer. And when he's missing, then it kind of, the plan kind of changes, because he's so vital to that. And then I also think that maybe to a certain extent the other teams have kind of figured out what our plan is. They know that we have the running game, and once they block that up, and I was said a lot in the Galway game, and I think it's probably a bit appropriate today as well, that maybe we don't have that plan B option, that if it's not working, that maybe we need another bit of a plan to change things up. Like, I'm big fan of Davy. I hope he stays. I think he's done so much for us, but we do need to change things up when it's not working, because this was the case again today.
How good was that Donegal performance in the first half? Because, like, as we said before, 13 different scorers in the entire game. I think they had 8 different scorers in the first half. Just so much talent across the entire pitch for Donegal.
Yeah, the one was brilliant, and the one was a big factor. We had it in our half, but we took our chances, and the fact that we used the one so much to our advantage, we put ourselves in a position where Armagh, it would be remarkable if they managed to come back in the second half. So it was that good of what we done, So just taking advantage simply of what we have, and they really came out better in the second half. Armagh, I thought, definitely, they got more men scoring. That wasn't Rian O'Neill, but look, whatever. We pulled through and we got 13 different scorers, so quite happy with it.
they didn't seem to be at the races today, and maybe that's what happens when you go in and play at a higher level. I don't know about the first half. I think we got 3 points in rain, got all three. They were all frees, and several times, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 times, they had the ball and it was either a loose pass or they run into trouble. There was one time Stephen Campbell, I think, just run into trouble and got turned over, and Donegal just come straight up the field and got a point. And when you're doing that against a team like Donegal, you're giving them oxygen. They love that, being able to strip the ball of you and move forward and get a score. So yeah, when Armagh was on the attack and suddenly get turned over and Donegal go the other end of the field and score, it is hard to take.
Yeah, look, Stephen McMenamin, a fantastic footballer, really top-notch player. There was worries, was he probably carrying injury going in, like going off in the first 10 minutes is never easy, but yeah, look, if we can get Stephen McMenamin back to full fitness, we won't have much weaknesses. But even seeing with Stephen McMenamin, we have Brendan McCole, who didn't even get on the pitch today, I don't think. And Brendan McCole, sure, he was the captain of that DCU team that won the Sigurdsson Cup. He is a fantastic footballer. So, like, we have a lot of quality off the bench, and maybe, or McFadden Ferry is a defender who's went off now on peacekeeping missions out in Lebanon, so maybe he's off for the year. But look, we're still, a top team, and I don't know what can come to us.
Was that the big disappointment then, that it took 47 minutes until you kicked a point from play? I think it was Jamie Clark who got the first one. Was that a bit of a disappointment that maybe, obviously Rian O'Neill was very positive in the first half, but the likes of Clark, the likes of Stephen Campbell, and even Rory Grugan to a certain extent probably didn't have as good as a game as maybe they feel they should have?
Yeah, it's disappointing because you were relying on the forward line. Armagh have a quality forward line, and the names you just went through there, and even the likes of Conor Turbot coming off the bench, they do have quality forwards. And
yeah, and I suppose from watching the first half, it looked like Meath in some ways they set up a little differently in some ways to the Wicklow game. Like in the Wicklow game, they're pressed up quite high up the pitch. They didn't really allow Wicklow to have much of the ball. But in this game, they seem to allow Kildare to have like so much possession. Like even in the first half, it would have been interesting to see like possession stats or something, because Kildare just completely dominated the ball, like in the midfield, in the half forward line. Was that a little worrying at one stage in the first half, the fact that like Kildare were just able to control the flow of the game, and that Meath going forward, they were it reminded me a little bit of the Leinster final in some ways, in the fact that they were shooting sometimes from like impossible angles and didn't really seem to have much control going forward.
Yeah, it was like Meath had set up not to lose rather than to win, like the way they're playing. Like they're giving the likes of Highland and Kieran a lot of space. They're calling a good few marks, giving them plenty of space to stick it over. And they're two really good forwards for Kildare. So I think, we finally got to realise we have to play our own game, which is running off the shoulder. We've really good forwards this year, and just putting pressure on them and pressing up. And when we did do that, we got the goals. We kind of punished them for their mistakes, and they just couldn't handle the press. So yeah, it wasn't working at the start, but I think we got it right eventually in the end, and that's why I think the game did switch around. But yeah, no, it was a crazy game, all right. And like I said, 12 goals in 2 games for Meath. Something you wouldn't have seen in the last few years, especially for Meath football. So it's very promising, but yeah, it was a bit weird there, the tactics at the start. I think it's good that they kind of realised, and we ended up getting it right then towards the end of the game.
I'm not massively, sold by this Meath team, to be honest. I thought Kildare would beat them, and Kildare were overall the better team today, but Meath suckered them with them goals. And that goal threat, you've seen even with the last time Meath did beat Dublin in Championship, it was goals. So goals, when you're scoring goals like that, in games where they're showing they can score goals in games where they're not in control. So they'll need that against Dublin because they won't be in control. But I think that Meath are very fast. They do get numbers behind the ball. I seen the first half an hour of that game, and it was like the Connacht final was scrappy, but in comparison of watching Galway Mayo and watching Meath Kildare, literally was like watching divisions down, the Meath Kildare game. Like it was so lacked intensity, and Meath will really need to bring intensity and bring physicality to that game. So for me, unless they can have some kind of a freak weather condition or some kind of a freak scenario, I can see Dublin winning it comfortably enough, but within themselves, because that's how they're playing at the moment. So
yeah, when the goals went in, I was thinking, God, like they just kept coming. It was literally like the Wicklow game all over again. And of course, like Jordan Morris getting another goal after his hat-trick last week. And another young player, Matthew Costello from wingback, getting a goal and also scoring a point. So he scored 1-1 today from wingback, and I think he's 19 years old, so that's crazy.
Yeah, well, because it's confidence, isn't it, when you're going for goal? Because if you're used to scoring them, and when you have a 3-on-2 situation, you know, you're going to go for it more so than otherwise. Like, and Meath have serious pace. Brian Menton coming from midfield, Kyogan and these guys coming from the half-back line. And then up top, there's like Cillian O'Sullivan, who's just so fast and so direct. So, yeah, the way they play, they do come in numbers, because they do get quite a good few guys behind the ball when they lose it. So it will be a test for Dublin.
I mean, Dublin tend to not concede too much. You know, they don't really concede that many goals. So would that maybe be the only kind of worry, that maybe like points-wise, you're not quite hitting the margin? Because normally, like, you'd kind of need to be hitting the, you know, 120 or kind of 119, 215 kind of mark to really beat the Dubs. So is that maybe the only worry kind of going into that potential final?
Yeah, I thought we got a lot of points from frees. Like, we usually have Thomas O'Reilly on the frees, but I think Kildare today were very good defensively. They didn't give away many frees around the middle, although they did give away a few mistakes which led to goals and other scores. But yeah, it probably is a bit of concern, especially in the first half. Like, we only got 9 points in the game, still scoring 5 goals. But yeah, something we're definitely going to have to improve on against Dublin, because I imagine, you know, they're going to try and nullify our attack as much as they can, and we're going to need point scorers.
And I suppose, like, from here, obviously having seen Donegal in the flesh and seeing how good they are, like, do you think there's any way they can topple the Dubs this year, or who do you reckon is, you know, or do you reckon the Dubs are too good to win it again this year?
Yeah, well, I suppose if Dublin's going to be caught, it's going to be this year, you know, with everything that's happening, you know, new manager in and knockout format, although they'll breeze through Leinster, you'd imagine, same as usual. But, you know, there's the likes of Connolly stepping away, McCaffrey stepped away, Sherlock, a couple of the management team have stepped away. So, yeah, there is a chance that they could be caught, I suppose, and maybe the likes of Donegal are the team that's going to catch them. I think I was with agreement with the whole country that if anybody's going to beat them, it was going to be Kerry.
I don't think there's any evidence to show that anyone is better than them. Definitely not. Even Kerry, before that shock defeat, I don't think there's any evidence to show that anyone is better than Dublin. But I think there is, in the way that Dublin are playing, you know, they've become so controlled and they're winning games comfortably over the last number of years, that there is kind of the sense that will they be able to kind of turn it on against a team who are able to challenge them. And that's kind of that's the question for me that kind of stills over. You know, when Dublin are going out and they're playing this, you know, very possession-based game. It's not possession-based in terms of other teams. They're not just keeping the ball for the sake of it, but they are controlling the game and everything's controlled. When they come up against a team who are going to kind of bring a bit more chaos because the game is going to be more competitive, are they going to be able to just kind of switch it on? You know, in the All-Ireland final drawn game last year, they weren't at that full pace that they brought to the replay. So if a team kind of brings that to them and then finishes the job, maybe like the Kerry were presented with the last day, that's kind of the only chance the team has of beating them, which in essence is catching them on the hop.
Yeah, look, that's the way it is. Like, but look, we live in 2020 and there's no backdoor this year. So, you know, in previous years, a lot of these smaller teams would maybe focus on maybe the next round of the qualifiers, maybe try their best, but like they kind of have the qualifiers to doubt their mind. But now, kind of whoever it be, Cavan or Down, they are going to throw the kitchen sink at us, you know. And Jason McLaughlin, they have one of the best cornerbacks in the country in Cavan, I think. And Mickey Graham, you know, famous for that Mullin-Acto one. That man's a very smart man, you know. And
so, but in terms of someone being better than them all over, and a better squad and a better team and better in individual places, no, definitely not. Donegal, really strong. I don't think their backs or their overall squad is as good as Dublin. Mayo, middle third, definitely not. And, you know, that efficiency up front, even though they're very strong in other places. And yeah, like Cork aren't really at that level yet, even though they've the Cork Arrogance and they do have a lot of physicality around the middle as well, but they're not at that level yet. So that's where I'd be seeing it with. Definitely not as nobody as good as them, but there definitely is a chance of them being caught on the hop.
I suppose so. Like we have a lot of very good hurlers, but we probably don't have any. Maybe Rory O'Connor, but we don't have a Tony Kelly. When you look at that man scoring 116, like unfortunately we just don't have that player. Rory O'Connor is a possibility. Like I'm just thinking back now, and in the first half, I know he got probably more scores in the second half, but if we look in the first half, he got one score on the sideline running away from goal, and on one side, on his left-hand side, and then he got another point on the other sideline running away from goal on his right-hand side, and then he scored from the corner flag. Like if there's somewhere you'd be happy with most players, you can shoot from there. You know, you'd be happy enough. But unfortunately, I just don't think we have one of those players. Lee Chin is our closest.